Thank you, Felicia. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. And I think this is going to be a fun class because I'm going to show you some really fun techniques that may look difficult, but they're actually pretty simple to achieve. Another thing is we're going to be working with, because I love glass painting, one of my favorite products, and that is DecoArt glass paint. Michaels carries a total of 20 gorgeous colors. And what I am trying to do here is achieve effects that are basically created with water, but with glass paint. And we're going to start over with this side, which is a shibori look. If you're not familiar with shibori, it's a beautiful technique that is created almost like a tie-dye, but it's more like folding techniques. There's various ways to do it. Obviously, we can't fold glass. So I had to improvise and come up with some solutions that are easy, but yet if you look at these candles, you actually do get that shibori look. And if you can pan back there, Elizabeth, there's just a few more that I would like everyone to see before we get started. This one here, that little planter, and this little planter, the teapot. So there's, various looks, but you'll get that. If it doesn't look exactly like shibori, you'll get the shibori vibe. So we're going to get started. Michaels, of course, has a variety of frames. For the shibori look, I happen to like just a plain, clean white frame. And I did pop out the backing and glue the glass in. You can probably see the glue. I used, if I have it handy, E6000, which is what I like to use when I'm gluing surfaces that are difficult to glue together. This works every time. It even glues glass to glass. So here we're gluing glass to wood. And I just did this about an hour ago, but that's fine just for the purposes of demoing here. Now, what I'm going to be showing you is this look that you already saw. And sometimes the size of the brush is very important, sometimes not so much. In this case, the size of the brush is very important because that's going to be the size of your squares or rectangles or whatever it is that we're going to create here. Also, you want to make sure that it's a flat brush, and you want to make sure that it's on the softer side, because when you're working with glass paint, you want to lay that paint down. You don't want to just push it. We're going to start with the navy. In this line, by the way, I'm sure you're familiar with our fan favorites, Americana acrylics. We have a bunch of fun colors for all of the paint. These are very straightforward because it's just a smaller collection of paint. This one is navy, which is what you would expect it to be called, right? We're going to set that aside. And I'm just going to load my brush. And I do want to tell you the trick here is don't try too hard to be perfect with your squares or rectangles. If you try too hard to make it perfect, it actually, sorry, I think I need to turn it this way. If you try to make it too perfect, it won't look quite as much like an authentic shibori. So as you can see, I'm just making squares. And this one will be slightly different than the one that I showed you because this brush is smaller, because I wanted to show a couple of different. And as you can see there, that one is much longer than these three. We want that. You want it to look a little abstract. And I'd say you could go about 3 or 4 passes before you actually reload your brush. And maybe these are looking a little bit too even. So I'm going to put my brush to the side. And I'm going to make 2 lines right there. Now, I can go all the way down. I'll sort of lift it a little bit so you could see. But I'm not going to because we want to do the next step before this starts to dry. If you work extremely fast, I would say perhaps you can cover the entire surface, but I would say if this is an 8x10, I would maybe do half. That part's up to you. And you're going to get a piece of freezer paper, and freezer paper does have the shiny side and the matte side. You're going to use the shiny side and you're going to press it down. Now, when you drop it, try to not drag it. Try to just drop it straight down. And then you're going to press it down. And what that's going to do is it's going to create a little bit of movement in that paint. And it's also going to lift some of the paint up because we want a little bit of that really cool transparency that you see in shibori through the fabric. And typically it's white fabric with a navy color accents or designs. Sometimes you'll see a lighter blue, but that's just because that part of the fabric is a little bit more watered down. And what's really cool is you could see the movement through the paper. So if you think, oh, I don't have quite enough, just take your finger and sort of press it down and move it around a little bit more. And when I lift it, you're going to see that some of the paint has been removed, giving you a really cool transparent look. But it also looks almost like it's printed on fabric, which is exactly what you want.
It's also your fingerprints, so don't do anything illegal. Oh, that's funny.
So this is really cool because now you can see the difference on the part that's lifted and the part that's just painted down, right? Of course, move it wherever you need.
Ceiling is like reflecting right on it. Well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to avoid that. Okay.
Is it a little bit better?
Yeah.
Okay. Now you could tell that I'm keeping somewhat of a pattern. I'm keeping all of these rows in 4s, but again, I don't want perfection. I want some a little bit smaller, some a little bit larger. And as you can see, I just turned the brush because I wanted a smaller rectangle right there. And we're just gonna keep going. Is the lighting still good on this side? Okay.
Yeah.
If I want to fit 2 more here, I'm going to use the side part of the brush. And guess what we're going to do next? I think you guessed it. We're going to get some more freezer paper. That's a little bit too large. I'm just going to cut it down a bit.
Claude,
Yes.
it's Jennifer. I have a question for you.
Sure.
What kind of brush are you using to apply this paint?
This is a flat 3/4 inch, and it's on the softer side. Now this happens to be a DecoArt Traditions, but I would, any brush that's of a better quality that has softer bristles, but it does have to be flat. I would not use a round brush or angled or anything like that. Would work. And it could be synthetic or, you know, real hair. Either one is fine as long as it's soft.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, I actually cut it to the exact size. And again, the same process. I'm just pressing it down. And if you see that there's not enough movement, go ahead and just sort of press it out with your fingers. Now we're going to go ahead and lift it. Just take one corner and carefully lift it right up. And there you have it. Now I'm going to very carefully turn it over. And here's the reason. You could definitely have turned this over to begin with and created your artwork on the front side. This is the back side. But if you create it on the back side, again, this glue is fresh, so I'm going to have to hold it. You know, this can't be scratched. So if it's hanging up on your wall, it's really easy for you to clean. It can't be scratched. And it looks extremely similar. It almost looks prettier on the opposite side. Okay, so we're going to set that aside and let it dry. And still keeping with the shibori theme, Michael's has a lot of little planters and glass pieces, but this is one of my favorites because it's this really fun oval shape. It was glass, I'll show you, and I just painted it with the glass paint in navy with 2 coats, and I let it dry. Now we're going to create this look here, only the opposite. It's the dark background with the white shibori look over it. So for this one, you want to use a soft round brush. And you do want to get it to a point if you can. And of course, we're going to use whites. When you start off using this paint, you do want to give it a little shake. Sometimes it'll make funny noises when it comes out. And maybe we'll put this here. I don't know if it'll roll around or. So that's the look we're going for, but the opposite. And very similar to what I created before, you don't want to be careful. As a matter of fact, your piece will look more like authentic shibori if you're not careful. So it's just a series of circles, lines. Maybe some circles are bigger. Maybe some lines are not connected.
Because you're trying to mimic the look of dye on a fabric.
Correct.
It might.
But specifically, shibori has this look, and these are the colors, you know, they use the indigo or navy blue and white quite a bit. But yes. So, you know, we can't get the exact look, of course, because it's fabric, but we can get pretty close and just have fun creating the look. I know some people have really cool shibori curtains and cushions and things like that. So how fun to create some accents that can go, you know, with those. On this one, because this has been painted, of course it's smooth, but it's not going to be quite as smooth as just directly on glass. So I would not go quite as far. In other words, I would not paint a large area before using the handy dandy freezer paper. Which, by the way, guys, this is freezer paper here. I use it all the time. It's fabulous because if I happen to get paint on the freezer paper, it's wipeable for quite a few uses. So I always have it on hand. So same thing, I'm going to press it down. And again, very cool how you can see right through there, right? And you can decide, do you want a little bit more movement or is it fine as is? And again, when I lift it, it's going to lift some of the paint, which is what you want. You want a little bit of transparency for a more authentic look. And we're just going to keep going. Now, if you make a mistake, not that you really can make a mistake with the shibori look, you could always get a wipe. I think it looks just a little bit too thick right there. But again, there's no right or wrong in shibori, right? You can just wipe it right off. Now, of course, the only reason I could do that is because that paint is 100% dry. And right now it doesn't look like much. You really need to, continue to get that authentic look. And you want to make sure that you don't mimic a pattern. Well, of course, it depends on which shibori look you're going for, but on this one, we want it very random. So I'm going to space this one out a little bit further. Do my circle. And I also like that this is the type of art that you don't really need a steady hand to do it. And you can look up some shibori patterns and mimic those if you'd like, or you can just sort of freehand it. Either way.
So Pla, a lot of people are asking about the shibori traditional blue and white. And actually, I just wanted to pop in here and say that yes, normally what you're painting on the white, those are usually the fold lines because you start with a white linen
Exactly.
cotton and then you dye it with an indigo dye. And when you take apart the bindings or the folds, you end up with these random white, patterns. And so that's what Pla is demonstrating.
Exactly. And because obviously we can't fold the glass, we just, I'm just doing my best trying to come up with that cool look.
I love the idea that if you do have shibori throw pillows or a curtain or a rug, you can create accent pieces
Exactly.
to draw it all together.
Exactly. And it's so unexpected to see it on glass.
Yeah.
By the way, the pieces I'm working on, well, these are glass, but you could also do this on ceramic. And believe it or not, you could even do it on I can't talk. You could even do it on plastic surfaces. The only thing is, I would suggest lightly sanding the plastic before painting it. I get that question quite a bit. Can I use your paints on plastic? Now, this particular glass paint can be baked. So you could bake it at, you can wait, 4 days and then bake it in the oven at 275 for 30 minutes, and that will make it dishwasher safe. So we're going to move on. I think you get the idea. I'll just stand it up here. And of course, I would just pat that last one because I want to get that look. Okay, so I hope all of you are liking that shibori look. We are going to move on over here to this side, and we're going to be creating some really fun tie-dye effects and even modern art. So we will start with the tie-dye. For this one, you're going to need 2 types of brushes, a small round brush, and I would say anywhere from a 4 to a 6, and a fan brush. And when it comes to the fan brush, you want to make sure you get a soft fan brush, not a stiff one. And we're just going to start the tie-dye effect here. You can use any colors you'd like for tie-dye. I really like to use rainbow colors because I think that that's very reminiscent of 1970 tie-dye. You could use whatever colors you'd like. And as you can see, that little picture is, clear glass, but now you can see how it looks on white ceramic. Actually, I'll bring one of these over.
Pla, quick question.
Sure.
You have said that you're going to use the fan brush. If someone doesn't have a fan brush, is there a good substitute? Or why is it that the fan brush is such a favorite for this?
It's extremely sparse. I don't know if the camera is catching that. So I'm going to be creating a drag effect, dragging the paint. And if it's dense, you're going to be dragging too much of the paint over. Gosh, I would say possibly even a chip brush. But if you use a chip brush, you have to be extremely light-handed, if that makes sense. Okay, I'm gonna start. Oh. So as you can see, I'm going in like a swirl pattern here, but I'm not just, painting it like that. I'm actually making these little brush strokes as I go. And of course, you don't need perfection here because tie-dye is very, imperfect. It's perfectly imperfect, right? It's really fun, and it also goes pretty fast, as you could see. And we'll stop right about here for now. And here's another fun thing that makes this project, go by fast and fun, especially for kids, is I'm not going to rinse my brush, and I'm going to go into the next color. Let's pick yellow. And I'm just going to start right next to the fuchsia here. And I'm using the same exact brush strokes. And see there how I caught some of the fuchsia? You want that. And this is one of those projects that I'm going to say the faster you work, the better. Okay, now we're going to move on to the next color. Which one should we do? Let's do this pretty mint. And again, the mint is catching some of that yellow and dragging it. And we have room to add one more color, guys. And here's another thing. You don't need each color, or you don't want each color to be extremely even. Some of them could be thinner, some of them could be thicker. Some colors could be more prominent. Okay, now what you're going to do is take your fan brush, have a paper towel close by, and you're going to start from the center and just drag out. Now, you definitely want to wipe that brush, because if you continue, it's going to get muddy. And it's also important that when you drag it, you're extremely light-handed. So now what you're going to do is the same exact process, because you have a very nice blend there. I think I would do a little bit more on this side. Is you want to brighten it up. So you basically just repeat the process. And you can go pretty fast because the color is already there. But it is important to do both steps so that it looks more like a, organic and authentic tie-dye. And wouldn't it be fun to do, you know, a different color combination for the entire family?
Mhm.
So you could see you're still keeping that tie-dye effect, but we're just adding some more color, making it more vibrant. And sometimes you don't even have to do all of the colors. I think I'm going to skip the mint and just add a little bit more of the turquoise here, and we're done. Okay, all done. I hope you guys like that one. We're doing some more. By the way, I did want to show, there's two different ways to create that look. This is the same technique, but instead of a swirl, you go around in rings. I hope that's not distracting.
I don't know.
Okay, so now what we're going to do is some abstract art. I love this because it's extremely easy, but I think it has a very high-end look to it. We're going to use the same color palette. As far as the brush, I'm going to say on this one, it's not that extremely important which brush you use. You do want to make sure that it's on the softer side. I'm just going to use a medium. So for this one, it's really fun because you just kind of do whatever. That's my instructions, guys.
That's kind of hard.
Do whatever. As you can see, some parts are thicker, some are thinner. That's fine. I don't really have to rinse the brush, but I am going to wipe some of that paint off because we definitely want different distinct colors in there. Oh, and by the way, I am working backwards. This is the back of the frame. What you don't want is anything to look too symmetrical or too perfect. Let's add in the prettiest color in the world, which is pink. And that's a fact, not opinion. Just kidding. I just love pink. Is it yours too, Elizabeth?
I love pink. My little boy's favorite color is pink.
Then your little boy is awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
he is. He loves pink.
I'll tell you what about this type of art. I do like making one, you know, that's great, but I love them in groupings. So absolutely beautiful when they're grouped together. Okay. For this one, you do want to make sure that your freezer paper is, you know, large enough to cover the whole circle. Actually, I think I'm going to cut it so that it can go right on there. And of course, if you're doing wall art, guys, you don't have to bake it. But remember, if you're making a mug or a glass or something that you want to be dishwasher safe, wait 4 days, pop it in that oven for 30 minutes at 275, and it's dishwasher safe. So again, just like with the shibori, you could see the paint through the paper, which is really nice. And you can decide how much more movement you would like that paint to have. And of course, we want to lift some of the paint off. We want a little bit of transparency there. So I'll try to lift it. And here's another thing, depending on how thick I was going to try to put it like that one. You can see how hold the glass though, because the glue isn't there. That one, of course, I used less paint. So when you create these, you could have a very heavy look with, you know, paint everywhere and very little glass showing through, or you could have a lot of glass showing through with just a little bit of paint. Another thing you can do is you can say, you know what, I really would like more paint on there. After you've lifted, you know, with the freezer paper, you can certainly keep going and add more paint. Same process. And I'll hold it up. Another thing I wanted to mention is I really love the way that this looks with nothing behind it, but that's only if you have a white wall or a very light colored wall. If you have dark walls or walls that are a bright color, or you could always just add a piece of white paper to the back and hang it up that way. Okay, do you guys have any questions for me? I hope you're excited to try water techniques with glass paint or water look techniques with glass paint. And remember, you can paint on ceramic like we did the mud. You can paint on glass, frames, pictures. Michael's has all kinds of fun things that you can paint with and experiment on. So I hope you guys had fun today, and I hope you want to try it. And I'm going to wait about 1 minute just in case any questions come in. In the meantime, you can look at all of the pretty things. I think that's dry enough to.
I think we're good.
We're good. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Michaels. Thanks for having us. I hope that you're all excited to try these techniques, and see you next time. Bye.